Pearl Harbor. 2 hours. The following depiction of the attack on Pearl Harbor consists of actual film footage and photographs taken on December 7, 1941, and recreated scenes originally presented in the John Ford documentary, December 7th.
We were dating at the time, I mean, quite steadily, and Saturday night we always spent at Hickam Field. And so we, as usual, went to the Officers Club and went dancing and got home quite late, actually. It must have been about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And there was no inclination that we're going to have any problems. I mean, things were quite serene. Beautiful night.
And it was a memorable night for members of the USS Arizona Band. They returned late to the ship after competing in the Navy's big band competition.
My wife and I went to the Royal Hawaiian Hotel's Saturday night dance. It was a beautiful night. It was winter, of course, which meant it was cool but not cold. Most of the women wore long dresses, and at midnight, Harry Owens played Sweet Leilani. This was a song he had written himself in tribute to his baby daughter.
In Washington, at 9 o'clock on the night of December 6, 2 important events. President Roosevelt, deeply concerned that things are getting out of hand, sends a message directly to the Emperor, inviting him to a face-to-face meeting. Ironically, at the same time, Navy intelligence delivers to the White House the first 13 parts of Japan's reply to Secretary Hull. After reading this, Roosevelt turns to his longtime confidant, Harry Hopkins, and says, "Harry, this means war." What the president does not know, and what nobody on the American side of tomorrow's war seems to know, is where or when. At 5:50 a.m., the fleet's 6 carriers, now about 220 miles north of Pearl, increase speed and turn to the east into a brisk wind to launch their planes. The pilot of the scout plane reports back to the fleet, "Pearl Harbor sleeps." The morning of December 7th, the main targets of the Japanese attack plan are lined up at anchor. The battleships Nevada, Arizona, West Virginia, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Maryland, and the Battle Force flagship, California. At 6:45 a.m., just outside the mouth of Pearl Harbor, the destroyer USS Ward spots the conning tower of a 2-man midget submarine. Guns and depth charges sink the sub in 1,200 feet of water, and the Ward skipper reports the incident to Navy headquarters.
I didn't feel grim resolution as such. Ever since I joined the military, I had a feeling that I would die in battle. It just became more concrete with this mission.
We were lined up on deck. The pilots were briefed unit by unit by the ship's captain, the wing commander, and the squadron leaders. We got into our planes and started to warm up the engines. No, it was getting light, but the sun had not yet risen. The fighter planes of Akagi took off first, then those of Kaga, and our Soryu and Hiri.
Since we were the second wave attack unit, we all gathered at the pockets which were located at the back of the deck. We watched them all fly away. We waved our caps. We really prayed for their success.
For about 2 hours, we flew through huge clouds, spreading like the ocean. Our flight group was very large, over 100 planes. We were escorted by Zero fighters, and so I felt secure. Instead of anxiety that the Great Pacific War was beginning, I had the serene feeling that I was going to be a man, that I was about to flower and bear fruit. I wasn't tense at all.
At a few minutes after 7 a.m., the primitive radar equipment on a hilltop above Pearl Harbor picks up a remarkable image. It is an image that the two operators on duty have never seen before.
36 miles, I think it was, or 132 miles, I'm sorry. And of course, I sent it into the information center. I talked to the switchboard operator. Well, when the call came back, Lockhart, being nearest the phone, answered the phone and spoke to the lieutenant that told him to...
Their memory. It was the Americans' last chance to ignore a warning about Pearl Harbor.
I happened to look down and saw the northernmost point of Oahu through an opening in the clouds. At that moment, I shouted unexpectedly in a very loud voice, "I did it!" Just after that, I received a signal from Fuchida to get into a formation to prepare for the attack. It was the first radio signal of the day. It said, "Go." As soon as we got that signal, we fired a test of our tail guns. Ba 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 ba. Suddenly, when they heard that, Zero fighters, dive bombers, and the torpedo bombers dove.
Saw a bunch of airplanes coming in, but they were coming in from all over the place. So we thought this was going to be a regular drill that we normally have, and nobody got too excited about it until we saw these planes start forming around, and then the torpedo planes went along the mountain, and they were coming right down the channel there, and they were aiming right for the battleships.
And all of a sudden, about 5 to 8, I heard this high-pitched sound of planes in a dive. I looked out the porthole and I saw 2 planes in a dive. And I've said this, and I guess every guy at Pearl said the same thing. What the hell are these fellas doing practicing on a Sunday morning?
It didn't take long for us to see the red circle on the plane, so we knew we were under attack. But there was mass confusion when the attack started.
Japanese planes are also bombing Kanoe Air Base, Hickam and Wheeler Fields, where Ken Taylor and the other Army Air Corps pilots are asleep. The night before, they'd been to a formal party at the Officers Club.
When you're awakened suddenly, as I was, you generally jump into the first pants that you can find, and mine happened to be tuxedo pants. At that time, the Japanese had already bombed the field, and they were busy strafing it. I called the base and told them to arm a couple of airplanes, and we were in the air maybe 15 minutes after the attack started.
There was a lot of excitement in the quadrangle. No officers, basically no officers. So the sergeants began to give their commands.
Well, we're just kind of numb. It's just war. It's war. That's all you could think. When we got up on that roof there and I saw the first plane with that circle on it, it sunk in. I said, oh my God, we're at war.
The whole family was preparing itself to go to church, and the music was on, and suddenly the music came to a screeching halt, and this announcer came on almost hysterical.
This is for real. The bombs are falling. The Japanese are attacking Pearl Harbor. This is not a practice. It is real. And I said something that I would have never thought of saying. I looked up there and I said, "You goddamn Japs."
We saw this bomb come down, and there was about 7 sailors up there on the bridge, and myself and Captain Benyon. And this bomb come down, and we looked at it, and we said, "Good Lord, it's going to hit us." And we all hit the deck. And at about that time, that tremendous explosion. And when we picked ourselves up, we looked towards the Arizona, and she was sitting on the bottom with just a ball of fire, looked like about 300 or 400 feet in diameter.
Now we had given this world-famous American Navy a first blow. And I was the one who had made this first strike. I had been trained all the way for this moment. Now all this training was rewarded. Since the bomb weighed 800 kilograms and the weight of the plane itself was 2.5 tons, the plane suddenly lifted when we released the heavy bomb. At that moment, all of my feelings of joy rushed up. I did it.
8:05 a.m., the end of the USS Arizona. Though it was not clear at the time, the ship had become the final resting place for over 1,000 men, including Bud and Wes Hite, just one of more than 30 pairs of brothers killed on the Arizona. The ambassadors know nothing about their own government's plans for that day, and oddly enough, Secretary Hull does not tell them that the Pearl Harbor battle has been going on for nearly an hour.
The first wave units had been attacking. There was a lot of black smoke filling the sky. Black smoke rose to 3,000 meters. It was swaying toward the west like a giant tail. When I saw that, I felt the attack was successful.
The first wave is over. Every battleship at Pearl has been hit, along with Hickam and Wheeler and Kaneohe airfields. In downtown Honolulu, there were civilian casualties from falling American anti-aircraft shrapnel. About 15 minutes later, a second wave begins. Ben Holt was a steward first class on the battleship Nevada.
The planes are coming in, the Nevada is getting hit. Our gunners are now manning the guns. The Nevada began to move. How could the ship move? It took hours to get up enough steam or whatever to get the ship to go.
The telephone's intercom called. It was Chief Quartermaster named Robert Sedbury. And he said, "Mr. Taussig, aren't you the off the deck? You better get down here because we've got a signal to get underway." And I said...
I was walking across the campus with a friend of mine.
It was going to be a boring morning because all Sunday morning watches were simply boring.
This announcer came on almost hysterical, you know. This is for real. The bombs are falling. The Japanese are attacking Pearl Harbor. This is not a practice.
To tell you the truth, I felt courageous.
The planes came in close and just raised havoc on the ships in the harbor.
All of those young men who were blown off or knocked off in some way from the Arizona and the...
We had to cancel our comedy show and had to quickly
I said something that
My life changed from a...
Pearl Harbor. 2 hours.